All right, I want you to look at your word problems. We're not going to do one today together, but I want you to use cubes in order to solve number 7 and 8. So circle those. Number 7 and 8, those are yours to do on your own when you do independent work. All right, and I want you to flip. If you find the last place you were working on, that should have been the back of 27. You're going to start today on lesson 29, problem set. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to add by estimating. So that will just help us kind of see the fractions a little bit different in our head. And then we're going to add and subtract fractions where our mixed number makes it, or our improper fraction makes it that the whole number goes up, or we need to borrow. That sounds really complicated, but once you see it, I think you will get it very quickly. So let's look at 29. It says, estimate each sum or difference. So first of all, what's a sum? The answer to an addition problem. And a difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. To the nearest half or whole by rounding. Explain your estimate using words or a number line. Okay, so while we do need practice with that, I want you to be able to explain out loud. Okay, so when you're doing them on your own, you can explain it in words so someone can see. But what we're doing, you can use a number line if you want. We're going to go back to this one, sorry, where it has 0, 1/2, 1 whole. So we're going to look at these fractions that they give us, and we're going to decide, is that closest to 0? The fraction. If it's closest to 0, then it's just like we drop it off and we just have the whole number they give us. If it's closest to half, then we're going to make it 1/2. And if it's closest to 1, then whatever whole number we have goes up by 1. Okay? So what we're trying to do is get it where we are adding and subtracting whole numbers, or whole with just a half. Okay? No other fractions in between. Now, we can do this for the most part without having to change our fraction. All right, so let's look at the first one, letter A. It says 2 and 1/12 plus 1 and 7/8. So I want you to look at those separately. Okay, so 2 and 1/12. Just look at 1/12. If this was broken up into 12s, I could actually do it, but I don't think we need to. If I only have 1 out of 12, am I closest to 0, half, or a whole? I'm closest to 0. 1 is closest to 0. What would be half? 6. So what you should be doing in your head is thinking 0, 6, 12. Well, is my number closest, is in my numerator, is it closest to 0, 6, or 12? It's closest to 0. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to estimate that this number, or round it, to just 2. Because it was closest to 0, I'm going to drop that off. So underneath, where you have space there, I want you to write 2 plus. Now look at this one, 7/8. What's half of 8? 4. Now you can draw this out. I would use it on a whiteboard so you don't have to keep drawing the number line, but this is what you should be doing in your head. So what I'm writing up above here is our mental thinking. 8, half of it is 4. So 0, 4, or 8. What is 7 closest to? Closest to 8, so this is 1 whole. So we're going to round that fraction to be 1 whole. So now I have 1 whole and 1 whole. What's that? 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now add that. 2 plus 2 is 4. I've rounded it. The exact answer is not 4. But when I round it, I can see, oh, that's what it should be about, right? You see that? Okay, I'm going to show you something. You don't have to do this, but I want to show you that we're pretty close. Okay, so I was going to say you remind me. I'll write 4 down here, because even if I ask you and you answer, I can't hear you. All right, so I'm going to add these exactly. 2 and 1/12. I'm not going to explain all of it. I just want you to trust that I have it right as we go. I know personally, I have it right and I wrote it wrong. 12 and 8, I know that the smallest multiple they can both make is 24. So that makes this 2 and 2/24, plus 1, and I have to think for 1 second. 7 times 3 is 21. Makes it 1 and 1/24. Okay, so 2 plus 1 is 3, and 21 plus 2 is 23/24. How close to 1 whole is this? Just 1 away. If I had 1 more, I'd have another whole. And if this was another whole, I'd have 3 plus 1 is 4. So our rounding was correct. All right? So all we're doing is just trying to figure out. We're looking at those and going, hey, what is that closest to? That fraction. Is it closest to 0, 1/2, or 1 whole? And then we're going to use that to round and estimate. I do this all the time when I'm at the grocery store. I round things, and then I can add the numbers easier in my head. Then I get to the cash register, and I can say, I know that my total should be about $24. So when they say $24.17, I know they're right. But if I say it should be about $24, and they say you owe me $63, I know one of us made a mistake. And before I pay, then I have to stop and figure it out. Did I make a mistake, or did they charge me wrong for something? Okay, so this is something I use all the time. So I want you to get where you can see it and use it. All right, so let's try the next one. You don't have to rewrite them, okay? Look right here. 1 and 11/12. What's half of 12? 6. Okay, so is 11 closer to 6, 0, or 12? Close to 12. That'd be 1 whole. 1 whole and 1 whole is 2. Write that down. 2 plus. Okay, what about 3/4? What's half of 4? 2. So is 3 closer to 2 or 3? Or excuse me, 2 or 4? It's right in the middle. But when something's in the middle, you always go up. Okay, so 3/4 is right in the middle, 1/2 and 1, but we go up. So I go up to 1. So 6 plus 1 is, 5 plus 1 is 6. Have you ever noticed I do that a lot? 2 plus 6, what does that equal? 8. That's our rounded answer. Now, if you don't believe me, or if you look at it and you're like, I don't get this, then actually do the actual problem, where you have to decide what's the smallest number, make it equivalent fractions, add it together, and see how close you are to 8. All right? But you are doing amazing, and I know it. This is going to be something that once you catch it, it's going to be one of those things that's real easy for you. Okay? One of the things that you can use this with long before you have to be buying stuff at the grocery store is to estimate the answer when we're doing adding and subtracting. If you can estimate it and just write that estimate down, so you say, I think it should be about 17.5, let's just say. When you do the problem and you get 84, you can re-estimate. If you still say 17.5, you know you did something wrong and you need to fix it. All right, let's look at letter C. All right, this is subtraction. 8 and 7/8 minus 2 and 1/9. What do you think this is closest to? 7/8. Try and do it in your head. What's half of 8? Is 7 closer to 0, half of 8, or 8? It's closer to 8, right? So 8 plus 1 is 9. I'm going to subtract. 2 and 1/9. What's half of 9? I can't do it exactly. It's somewhere between 4 and 5. It's actually 4.5, but between 4 and 5. Is 1 closer to 0, 4 or 5, or 9? 0, so just drop that off. Write the whole number down. 7 minus 2 is, I did it again! 9 minus 2 is 7. All right? I want you to try to do letter D really quickly. I want you to pause the video, do letter D, and then check back and see where you're at with it, okay? Where your thinking is. So do letter D and then push play and check it. Okay? So if you're looking at it, 6 and 1/8, you should drop that 1/8 because it's closest to 0, right? Half of 8 is 4, and 1 is closer to 0 than it is to 4. So it's 6 And then 2.5. Was that closest to 0, half, or whole? Half, because it's there. Okay? So if you got at least this far, this is what I want you to think. I can subtract this in my head. Okay? So this time I'm going to cover up the fraction. 6 minus 2 is what? 4. So I have 4, but then I have to take another half off of that. So if I had to take another whole, 4 minus 1 would be 3. But I'm only taking a half, so I have to put a half back on. So it's 3.5. So look at how I do it. To check it, I say, well, I had 3.5 plus 2.5. Half and half is 1 whole. I had 3 here, so 3, 4, 5, 6. I still came up with the same answer. All right, I'm going to just draw something just real quick so you can see it. Halves, I want you to think just like half of something. So a half of a pie, something like that, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 pies. I'm gonna cut them all in half, okay? How many of them did I eat? How many whole ones? 2. So get rid of 1, get rid of 2. And then I also ate half of it, half of 1. So now how many whole do I have? 1, 2, 3, and half of it left. Okay? Sometimes it takes just a little bit of practice with that, especially if you're at all like Miss Rasmussen and you are visual. That means it doesn't quite make it in my head until I actually have a good picture of it. So I might have to draw it out. I might have to make a few circles, even though this would take some time. I might have to actually cut something out or get, you could get like the tens blocks, the base 10 blocks. You could do something like that. But sometimes it takes me actually touching and seeing it before my brain goes, oh, I've got that. Once my brain has it, then I'm good to go. But otherwise, until that happens, some of it is a little hard for me to understand, okay? So practice as you need. We're gonna do letter E together, and then I'm gonna give you some practice on your own. So E is 3 3/8 plus 5 1/9, okay? So take a look at this. What's half of 8? 4. Is 3 closer to 0, 4, or 8? It's closest to 4. So this is going to round to 3 1/2. 3 1/2, write that down. Plus 9, remember we said it's 4 1/2 is in the middle, so 4 or 5. Is 1 closest to 0, 4 or 5, or 9? 0. So we just drop that off. So we're going to add 5. What do I do when I have that half? I'm just going to add it on. I'm going to cut it for just a second, do my whole numbers. 3 plus 5 is 8, and then put that half back on. It's 8 1/2. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to actually listen to the directions and then pause the video. I want you to do on the back side, I want you to choose 4 of those and do them. And then I want you to get them checked. If the teacher is walking around helping other people, then check it with a partner, okay? So let's just say my partner, I did all these ones and my partner did all these ones. We'll switch papers and have your partner do the opposite ones that they did, whatever you have empty, have them do those and you do the empty ones on theirs, and then check your answers together. Or find somebody who did the same ones and check them and see, okay? But I want you to pause and do that first before we go on to actually doing the adding and subtracting. Estimating it in your head, once you get that there, gives you a good spot to go, hey, I think this answer should be about this number. And if you can get to about that number, like you have something in your head, when you go to answer, you'll know if you're pretty close or not. All right, so pause and do that, and then come back, and we'll be working on lesson 31. All right, I hope that went well. All right, looking at 31, we are going to be adding, so we're not doing too many things that are different than what we did before. All right, I just want you to see what's happening. So look at letter A. I'm going to show it to you on here the way that they have it, and I'll explain. Sometimes when they show you the visual, but nobody's showing it to you, it doesn't really make sense. So they have it, so it says 3 1/3 plus 2 2/3 equals 5 plus 3/3. That doesn't mean a whole lot to us. What they did was they just broke this up. I can see, I cover it up, but this is 3 1/3 plus 2 2/3. They did the whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. And since these had, that's my look for my mistake. Since these have the same denominators, I just add across. 1 plus 2 is 3. It's 3 3s, right? But what do you know? If the numerator and denominator are the same, that's 1. So what's my answer? 6. 5 plus 1 is 6. So I want you to add that in where it says equals. Okay? So what we're going to be doing is you're going to make number bonds underneath each one, okay? If you need to. Some of them don't need a number bond. So like look at letter B. It's 4 1/4 plus 3 2/4. What do you notice right away that they have? Same denominator, okay? You should be looking at your paper listening to my voice. I'm not going to rewrite this one. Okay, they have the same denominator. So we can just add them across. Let's just see what happens, okay? Add your whole numbers. 4 plus 3 equals 7. Write that down. And then do your fraction. They have the same denominator, so just across the numerator. 1 plus 2 is 3 over 4. So that's just 7 3/4. We didn't need to do anything, right? Okay, now look at letter C. We need to do something. I can see it, but what I'm going to show you, these number bonds that they're showing you, you can use it if you need. But what they're showing you to do is to break this up into the whole number and the fraction. Well, if you can see that yourself, you don't have to waste your time on the number bonds. What are the whole numbers? 2 plus 6 equals 8. Write it down. Now, look across. You already knew they had the same denominator. 2 plus 4 equals 6 out of 6. Well, that's improper because if it equals or is more than the denominator in the numerator, it's improper. So 6 over 6 equals 1. I just put that down here. 8 and 1. What's 8 plus 1? 9. That's your answer. All right? So now they're showing you on the bottom to solve using a number line. Now, you can use a number line if you want. I think a number line makes it with fractions that you have a lot more work to do. You make this big number line and then you have to draw all the fractions in there. If you need that, then you do it. Otherwise, I want you just to use number bonds as you need them. Okay? If you can do it without the number bond, then do it without the number bond. Let's do letter A, number 2A. So it says 2 4/5 plus 1 2/5. So always check the denominators. Are they the same? They are. So then we know that all we have to do is add across. And that's what they did for us. The whole number plus the whole number. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then the fractions, the numerators, 4 plus 2 is 6. Now what do you notice about the fraction? It's improper. Now you can make a number bond. How many would make a whole? 5 over 5. How many would be left? 6 minus 5 is 1, 1/5. Right? So you know that this is 1 whole and 1/5. 3 plus the 1 whole. 3 plus 1 is 4. And what's left? 1/5. Okay? I want you to do letter B. I want you to pause it. I actually want you to do letter B and C. See how that goes with doing a couple of them, and then check back with the video. All right, so do letter B and C. You would draw it out on a number line only if you need that, and use the number bonds where you need them. If you need them on each one, like if you need to break this apart on a number bond to be 1 3/4, then do that. There's no problem with that. Remember, a lazy mathematician does the work that they need the quickest way that gives them the right answer. So if my quickest way is without a number bond, then I don't use the number bond, as long as it's always right. If my quickest way is to write a number bond, even though it might take me a couple seconds longer than someone else, as long as I have it right, that is my best bet, okay? Because if I don't write it, then that's lazy. If my brain needs to see it and I don't write it, that's lazy, because it's going to take me, like real lazy, that's going to take me another time of going back, because the answer will be wrong, then I have to go back and redo it, probably use the number bonds. I should just use the number bond in the first place. Use what works for you, okay? So push pause, do B and C, and come back to check. All right, B says 1 3/4 plus 3 3/4. So I added my whole numbers. 1 plus 3 is 4. Since they have the same denominator, I'm just going across. 3 plus 3 is 6. This is where I'll use a number bond just to be sure I get it right. How many times can 4 go in there? Or how can I make a whole? 4 out of 4, that's 1. How many do I have left? 6 minus 4 is 2, 2/4, right? So now I have another whole number. 4 and 1 is 5, and I still have my fraction left. So my answer is 5 2/4. Okay, how did you do on that one? Did you get it correct? All right, let's look at letter C. Okay, 3 3/8 plus 2 6/8. I did the whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. They have the same denominator, so just across the numerators. 3 plus 6 is 9/8. And then I can make one whole, 8/8, and one left over is 1/8. So this is, because this is 1, this is a whole number. 5 plus 1 is 6, and what's left over is my 1/8. Okay, I hope that you're finding that pretty simple. All right, so look on the back, lesson 31. It says solve using the arrow way to show how to make one. That's a fancy way, just what we're doing, really, is using number bonds. You're using number bonds where you need them, okay? So there's nothing new in what you're doing there, okay? So let's just look at 3A, and then I'll let you go from there. It says 2 4/6 plus 1 5/6. They added the whole number together. 2 plus 1 is 3. But then they left the fractions. Instead of doing 6 plus 5/6, they left them on there. They said it's 3 4/6 plus 5/6. That's just an extra step, right? Okay, so then they broke up 5/6. That's, to me, those are just extra steps. It doesn't make any sense. So I want you to go across the way you know. So it says 3 4/6 plus 5/6 equals. Let's add that since they have the same denominator. Okay, we know then the whole number is going to stay the same. 4 plus 5 is 9, 9/6. Do our number bond. How many makes a whole? 6, 6. And 9 minus 6 is 3, 3, 6. This is 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. And what's left over? 3, 6. Okay, all right, you're gonna pause for just a minute, ask any questions you have. There's 5 problems left there, so I want you to choose 3 of them. You're gonna choose 3 of those, and then listen to the teacher in the room to decide, or not to decide, to have the teacher tell you whether you're gonna do them right now for practice before we go on to subtraction, or if you're going to do it at the end for independent work, okay? And then come back and we'll work on subtraction. All right, let's work on some subtraction. Letter A on problem set 32, it says 3 3/4 minus 1/4. So always check, do they have the same denominators? If they do, then we're gonna keep going. Can I subtract the whole numbers? Well, there's only one whole number, right? So I don't have to do anything yet, just check the fraction. 3 minus 1 equals 2, 2/4. And since there's nothing to subtract with the whole numbers, 3 minus 0 is 3. That one was a pretty easy one. The first 2 are pretty easy, and then we're going to look at something different. Okay, try this one on your own. Try to beat me before I get it done. They have the same denominators. Subtract your fraction. you should have had 4/10. And then what do you do with the whole number? 4 minus 0, because there's no whole number, is 4 4/10. All right? If you have a specific question just about those going across, I want you to pause the video and ask that quickly. And then we're going to move on. We're going to look at letter C. Okay? So looking at letter C, it says 5 1/3 minus 2/3. They have the same denominator, correct? Okay, can I have 1 minus 2? No, I can't do that. So technically what I'm doing is borrowing. What I don't want your brain to go is, oh, this was so hard in regular subtraction. We're going to use number bonds. It'll be simple for you, okay? So I want you to break this up. We need another 1 over here. So how could I break this? We've done this before. Take 1 away. It'd be 4 whole and 3/3. That's the same as saying 4 plus 1 is 5. Now I have 3/3 and I have this 1/3. Add those together. 3/3 plus 1/3 is 4/3. Right? So this is like saying 4, here's 1, that makes 5, and 1/3. What's my number? 5 1/3. Now I'm going to subtract 4/3 minus 2/3. What is that? 4, they have the same denominator, so 4 minus 2 is 2. And now, look at my whole number. This is the tricky part for you, is remember, and you may want to cross that out once you do it, to remember this is your whole number. 4 minus 0 is 4. 4 2/3. I can even check that. If I wanted to add back to what we did, well, 2/3 is 1/3 plus 1/3. So add 1 more to this. It'd be 4 3/3, which is 4 and another 1, that's 5, and I have 1/3 left. That's what I started with, 5 1/3. So I know that we did it correctly. All right? I want you to try letter D on your own. Don't worry about what they're telling you using a number line or decomposing. We're decomposing, we're using the number bond. So I want you to do letter D on your own, do as far as you can, and then check back with me. All right, let's see if you got this far. I can see this is 3/5 minus 4/5. Because I can't do that, I have to break my number down into 8 plus 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. But this is my fraction, 5/5. So now I can add what I already had, because this is still just 9. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus my 3/5. So now I have 8/5, right? 8/5 minus 4/5. 8 minus 4 is 4, so 4/5. Cross that out because I was here. What's my whole number? 8. 8 minus 0 is 8. Okay, so my answer is 8 4/5. All right, let's try letter A on number 2. They started it for you. Well, let's do that one together. We'll do it the way they show you. And I'll show you in case in your brain you go, oh, I could have done that. They took 4/5 and they broke it up because they said you can't subtract 3 minus 4. They broke it up into 3/5 minus 1/5. Uh-oh, the lights went out. Hold on for a second, I'm gonna fix that.